From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, these beetles may be beautiful, but they can cause a lot of problems. How scientists are trying to see these beetles in a whole new way.
How they see color, if they see color.
Wondering when the rainy weather is going to end.
So maybe a brief window here where it's going to turn a little bit warmer.
And what can we expect out of the next round of trade talks with China? What the Ag Secretary would like to see coming up.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The G20 summit in Japan now just 2 days away, and there already appears to be some movement when it comes to trade talks with China. China's Vice Premier Liu He held a phone call with top U.S. trade representatives on Monday. In a statement, the Ministry of Commerce said Liu had exchanged views on trade with his U.S. counterparts and agreed to maintain communications. U.S. officials are playing down expectations ahead of Saturday's meeting between President Trump and China's Xi Jinping at the G20 meeting in Osaka, Japan. But China's foreign ministry says it hopes the meeting will help build trust and resolve outstanding issues. President Trump has already imposed 25% tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese imports. China has retaliated with tariffs on U.S. goods. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue says American farmers are one of the casualties of the trade disruption with China. Speaking with CNN at this year's Iowa Great Tractor Ride, Perdue said while he didn't expect the president to come home from the G20 with a deal with China, he said he thinks he'll return with the beginning of a, quote, let's really get serious about negotiations, end quote. Perdue also said he would like to see a resolution by the end of the year. Happening later tonight, the first of two Democratic presidential debates will take place in Miami. Kelly Daschle of the Associated Press has a look at what it's taken for candidates to get this far.
I am running for President of the United States.
I am a candidate for President of the United States.
Are you ready for a political revolution?
For months, they've been making their case, raising money, and working the crowds. But the 2020 Democratic race for the White House kicks off in earnest this week with the first primary debate in Miami, spanning 2 nights. A whopping 24 Democratic hopefuls are vying to take on Donald Trump, the largest field in recent history. 20 of those made the cut to appear on the debate stage, randomly divided into 2 groups, 10 on each night.
The debates are really going to pose a challenge to these Democratic candidates. The stage is going to be crowded, so the opportunity for a candidate to break through is pretty slim. You're not going to get a lot of time.
4 of the 6 top polling candidates will face off the second night, including former Vice President Joe Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, making that the night with the biggest stakes, particularly for Biden, who has been leading in most Democratic polls.
He's the big guy in the race now, and they're going to want to bring him down. So I think he's going to be a target in this debate, and he has to demonstrate that he can hold his own. He can't make a flub.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, surging in some polls, takes center stage the first night, sans most of her toughest competition, giving her a primetime chance to shine. The crowded stage presents a crucial test for the lower polling tier of candidates who need a breakout moment in this first debate to introduce themselves to voters and elevate their struggling campaigns.
If you're a lesser-known candidate, you have to make some kind of mark in this debate. Because it will be a predicate for fundraising and media attention. They're going to have to come up with something that is memorable, short, and sweet, because if they don't, they're going to get lost in the clutter.
For the relatively well-known and higher polling candidates, the key to success might just be getting through this first debate unharmed.
I think most candidates that we've talked to really want to emerge from the debate unscathed and don't expect that it will result in any huge bounce for them. The most important thing is to not do something that's damaging to your candidacy at this point.
The 4 candidates left off the stage did not make the Democratic National Committee's polling and fundraising requirements needed to participate in the debate. And the DNC is already warning the thresholds will be higher to qualify for the next round scheduled for this fall. Kelly Daschle, Associated Press.
Friday is a big report day. That's when USDA plans to release its estimates on just how many acres were actually planted in what's been a historically wet spring. Analysts at Reuters issuing their own numbers ahead of that report. For corn, USDA in March thought nearly 92.8 million acres would be planted. Reuters estimating the number will instead be 86.6. For soybeans, USDA called for 84.6. Reuters survey forecasting slightly less at 84.3. As for wheat, USDA in March calling for 45.7. Reuters saying it could be 45.6. All of this driven by the wet weather. But USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says farmers may have a short reprieve.
The next couple of weeks might be the best weather that we're going to see, perhaps for the entire summer. So maybe a brief window here where it's going to turn a little bit warmer across the plains in the Midwest, and the rains may slacken a little bit. Maybe that'll help to jumpstart some of these late planted crops, and at least they can get established before the potential for more adverse weather returns later in the summer.
There has been even more rain recently. Flood waters washed out culverts and left roads impassable in Anderson, Missouri. That's in the southwest part of the state. A local TV station says crews had to perform more than a dozen water rescues. And there's concern in other parts of Missouri. At some river gauges, the Missouri River is projected to reach the third highest river level ever. The top two river levels also reached this year, and forecasting the river has been tough.
It's tough to forecast the river right now with all those breaches in the levee, and at these high levels the river stretches out, and so it takes a lot more water for the river to rise. But at the same time, when there's a breach, a lot of time the water goes through the breach and goes around that gauge, and so the gauge isn't picking up the actual flow of the river. So it's you know, their National Weather Service has their folks in there. There's a lot of hydrologists trying to figure these river levels. They're doing the best they can, but still there is some guesswork in it.
In flooded fields, also still an issue right now. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has more in today's crop comments. Cindy?
Well, Clinton, some strange things are showing up in those flooded fields. Peter Bergkamp lives in Garden Plain, Kansas, and he said this is an accurate picture of how the spring of 2019 has been going so far. Now, if you look closely, you can see that there is a turtle swimming in the corn. I'm sure that's not the only strange thing they've seen in the floodwaters. Let's take a look at our wind speed forecast for the day, and we're going to be seeing those winds for the most part heaviest out in the southwestern United States. Now, some areas in the east you'll have pockets of stronger winds, especially where you might have some showers and thunderstorms developing. Overnight you might have some windier conditions right in the nation's midsection, but as we head into the day tomorrow, it's especially going to be the western half of the United States that sees some windier conditions. I'll have your national forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
On the policy front, the land of Lincoln is going green. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signing a bill that legalizes marijuana in his state. Illinois is now the 11th state to legalize recreational marijuana. The law will permit state licensed businesses to grow and sell pot. It also allows people 21 and above to consume and possess it. Marijuana is expected to bring the state about $500 million per year in tax revenue. Critics say legalization will result in more deaths and driving while high vehicular accidents. African swine fever continues to spread in Asia. Vietnam has now culled nearly 10% of its pig herd in an effort to stem the outbreak. The Vietnamese government says more than 2.8 million pigs have now been culled. Officials say the virus is spreading from small household farms, is now starting to show up at large commercial operations. Just this week, a farm with 18,000 head saw an outbreak. ASF was first detected in February and is now spread to 60 of 63 provinces there. Pork makes up 3/4 of total meat consumption in Vietnam. USDA says corn is just about planted. Beans are well on the way. We'll talk about those numbers and what to watch for from USDA later this week in analysis. And later, protecting the nation's forest by studying this colorful family of beetles, how researchers are working to keep jewel beetles at bay.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing, our guest today. Sam, let's talk about where we're at on this crop progress. There's been a lot of debate about, how much is planted Is it totally planted? We're almost to the end of June. How much more can we even plant, given the numbers that USDA is throwing out there? Where do you sit on this?
Well, until we see an actual printed number from USDA, which we're going to get at least an update on that next week, you almost have to focus on just the production potential in general, as opposed to just, this is what I think acres are, this is what I think yield could be. Let's look at the scenario where acres are this or that, and if they're this or that, how could that impact yield? One of the premises I feel like we could see a bigger surprise in bean acres. USDA cut yield so much in June, 10 bushel the acre.
Right.
Difficult for me to see them coming in and now taking away 6 million acres of planted corn acres too. So I think the way the farmer was incentivized to try to plant corn if he could. You had situations out here where a guy may have had a piece of ground he was going to plant beans on, but it was the only piece he could get on without getting stuck. And I think that filtered into the crop insurance decisions and maxing out base acres and so forth. And there's a lot of corn that got stuck in the ground even in the wet acres, but it's tiny and it's going to be a long time figuring out what it's going to make.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you go through the next couple of weeks, we've got some big reports coming from USDA. What numbers are you watching for to see that we're going to drive this market?
We have to keep an eye on demand. We know there's cuts coming in exports, but ethanol is kind of sustaining itself for the short term at least, because the products are also rising, keeping them in the game, and that's why some of these bids have been so strong to get grain out of the farmer's hands. So farmers are now bullish. All the bull spreads have now kind of flipped the charts. So I think long term you're going to have breaks be for buying. You had everyone kind of focused on this whole variable storage rate thing for corn, and we've just completely reversed that story. And I think you blew a lot of those people out of that market that were looking for something like that. So now we kind of come back down to earth, reevaluate, see where we're at on acres, and then get into trying to evaluate what kind of production we could actually have based on weather.
And what kind of harvest we can have on which acres are we actually going to cut.
And how many beans we can even get in the ground at this point.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sam. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
For marketing advice, call Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing at 800-655-3380. The IBM Watson Decision Platform for Agriculture, helping to feed a hungry world with the power of AI.
We know it's now summer, but did you know that on the first day of the season, parts of Colorado and the Rockies saw up to 20 inches of snow? Now take a look at these pictures. The snowpack in the state was already wildly high, 750% above normal. Following the solstice storm on Monday, the NRCS says it's now more than 4,000% above normal. Of course, the number's high because typically very little snow is left in late June. This year, however, colder temperatures have helped preserve snow that fell earlier in the season. Cindy, just incredible amounts of snowpacks, not just in Colorado, but also out west in California.
Exactly. I mean, there's just been a lot of moisture this year in many parts of the country, whether it be rain or snow. Now, speaking of moisture, let's take a look at the root zone moisture. Now, what you're looking at first is last week's, and I want to show you the difference between last week and this week, and really notice the north central United States and the southeast. What happens? Boom, we've really gotten a lot more moisture, kind of knocked out some of those dryness. But on the other hand, look at all of the moisture we continue to add in the nation's midsection. A lot more blue all the way from folks in eastern Kansas, Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, and all the way into parts of the northeast, even the mid-Atlantic. So still some dryness in the southeast, in the north central, and south central United States, and out west. But we've actually dried out. There's a lot less blue out in some of those higher elevations in the Rockies all the way out to the Sierra Nevadas. All right, here's a look at our map for the day today. Most of the action is going to be in the north central United States, and we'll see some kind of scattered showers and some rumbles of thunder in the southeast as well, as we kind of have just a lot of heat and humidity there. Notice that these features don't make a ton of movement over the next day or so. We'll see some scattered showers and thunderstorms popping up there, but then also watch along the frontal boundaries as you get into the Great Lakes and upper Midwest and into the northern plains as well. Heading into Wednesday night, we see perhaps a storm system that moves southward from that south of that warm front. So maybe parts of Missouri seeing some heavy rain there according to our model. But again, the features don't move too much, so we'll tend to see some areas of energy moving along, and we continue to see chances each day for showers and thunderstorms. And of course, with that heat and humidity each day, you could see things firing up in the southeast. Now, over the past 24 hours, the focus has kind of been along the Gulf Coast states, but you can see some scattered areas with some lighter rain in the nation's midsection as well. I think the eastern part of Texas will see a little bit more rain. I think the model overdoes the moisture a little bit, though, on this map. Heading into our temperatures, still pretty warm and very humid in the south central and southeastern United States. The cool spot remains in the northwest. And then as we get into the overnight, we'll see those 50s and 60s in the northeast and into the northwest, but really warm. And low is only in the upper 60s in Minneapolis. That's really, really on the mild side. Still some 80s and 90s as you get into the southeast tomorrow. Here's that jet stream. You can see the cooler temperatures because we have a trough there, but that ridge will continue to build in the nation's midsection, and that's going to bring some real heat to a lot of the nation's midsection for our weekend. It's going to be a very warm weekend and very humid weekend in a lot of the nation's midsection and into much of the east as well. A little cool in the northeast. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Silverton, Idaho, showers and thunderstorms for you today with a high of 74. Dilley, Texas, mostly sunny and hot with a high of 97. And Chase City, Virginia, sunny and hot with a high of 89 degrees.
Up next, a look at the nation's favorite vegetable, and it might surprise you. And later, there's nothing more peaceful than a walk in the forest, but a family of beetles is threatening to continue to wipe out millions of trees. See what researchers are doing to fight back.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Ongoing investment in protected agriculture in Mexico could mean continued losses for fruit and vegetable industry in Florida. That's according to a report from the University of Florida. The study says that since the passage of NAFTA, U.S. fruit and vegetable growers have faced increased competition from Mexico, along with greater regulation and several hurricanes. It says all those factors contributed to a rise in U.S. imports of fresh fruits and vegetables from Mexico. Researchers say that further increases in U.S. imports of fruits and vegetables from Mexico will negatively impact tomato, strawberry, and bell pepper growers. What's your favorite vegetable? Green Giant is out with its annual poll of Americans' favorite vegetable, and the #1 answer is broccoli. It won for the second year in a row with even greater results than last year. More than 5,000 people took the survey, with broccoli placing first in 39 states. Now, amazingly, potatoes ranked first only in Arkansas, not in Idaho. Of the 7 states that picked corn, Iowa wasn't one of them. And cucumbers, well, they didn't carry a single state. The nation's forests face plenty of threats of their own. Down south, it's a colorful family of beetles that have scientists worried. That story next.
Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
One of the most colorful group of insects in the world is the jewel beetles. These iridescent insects are beautiful, but some are destructive, such as the emerald ash borer. As Craig Gautreaux reports, researchers at the LSU Ag Center are trying to unlock their secrets.
Beautiful is one way to describe jewel beetles, but these shiny reflective insects can also cause havoc on their host plants. Since its introduction in 2002, the emerald ash borer has been decimating North America's ash trees. The emerald ash borer was found in northwest Louisiana in 2015, and researchers at the LSU Ag Center are examining what role color plays in their environment.
A lot of the crux of my research is essentially trying to understand how these beetles see, how they see color, if they see color, and the colors of the insects themselves, how that might be a cue or, hey, look at me, here I am, attraction for males and females or to find their host plants.
To demonstrate his research, Lord uses a special edition LSU football helmet to help illustrate the concept of light and color.
The vast majority of them are iridescent, or their color seems to shift and change as your viewing angle changes or as the light angle changes.
These bluish-purple traps were being used to detect the presence of emerald ash borers in Webster Parish, but ironically, the beetles don't see it that way.
Beetles are effectively blue colorblind, where a lot of the traps we use have lots of blue hues. What they've done is they've made duplications into their visual genes and changed those a bit to allow them to see sort of blue-ish.
The altering of visual genes could hold the key to controlling jewel beetle pests.
If we are able to find out the genes that control for the colors these beetles have, altering those genes will allow what would be an attractive green beetle to be a less attractive brown.
These gene alterations would hopefully interfere with how beetles find their host plants or a potential mate. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
Thanks, Craig, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.